Assalamu alaikum. I am Dr. Aisha. Today we are going to talk about retinacula of ankle and foot, tarsal tunnel syndrome, and muscles on the dorsum of foot. So our first topic for today is retinacula. Retinacula are basically bands of deep fascia around ankle which retain tendons which cross the ankle to be inserted into the foot in place. As I have already told you in the deep fascia of leg, that deep fascia of leg, it thickens around the ankle to form three sets of retinacula. The first one is the extensor retinacula, superior and inferior extensor retinacula, which lies on front of the ankle. Laterally, we have superior and inferior peroneal retinacula, which is also known as fibular retinacula, and posteromedially there is flexor retinaculum. We'll start with the attachments and relations of superior and inferior extensor retinacula. This is an image showing attachments of superior and inferior extensor retinacula. This is tibia, this is fibula. This purple one is the superior extensor retinaculum, and this green band which you can see here is inferior extensor retinaculum. Let's begin with the attachments of superior extensor retinaculum. This is a strong broad band of deep fascia which passes from fibula to the tibia proximal to the malleoli. This is medial malleolus, this is lateral malleolus. So this retinaculum, it lies proximal to these malleoli. It passes from fibula to the tibia. On the medial side, it is attached to the lower part of anterior border of tibia, while on the lateral side, it is attached to the lower part of anterior border of fibula. At this side, this deep fascia, it splits to form anterior boundary of elongated triangular area just above the lateral malleolus at this side. Now the attachments of inferior extensor retinaculum. This is a Y-shaped band of deep fascia which lies just in front of the ankle joint and over the posterior part of the foot, dorsum of foot. The stem of the inferior extensor retinaculum, it lies on the lateral side, while the two bands, upper and lower, they lie on the medial side of the dorsum of foot. The stem of inferior extensor retinaculum, as you can see here, it is attached to the anterior part of superior surface of calcaneum. This is calcaneum bone, which is the tarsal bone in the foot. As I told you in my previous lecture, it is attached on the anterior part of superior surface of calcaneum. Then the upper band of this retinaculum, it passes upwards and medially and is attached to the anterior border of medial malleolus. This is medial malleolus, this is anterior border of medial malleolus. At this point, this band is attached to it. The inferior band or lower band, it runs downwards and medially like this and is attached to the plantar aponeurosis, which lies on the plantar aspect of the foot. Now let's talk about the structures that pass deep to these retinacula. Starting from medial to the lateral side, the first structure that passes deep to these retinacula is the tendon of tibialis anterior muscle, this one. The second structure is tendon of extensor hallucis longus muscle, which crosses these vessels and come on the medial side of the foot at this point. Then comes anterior tibial vessels and anterior tibial nerve, which is also known as deep peroneal nerve. The fourth structure is the extensor digitorum longus muscle. This long tendon is extensor digitorum longus, tendon of extensor digitorum longus muscle. Then comes the peroneus tertius muscle. The last structure which passes deep to these retinacula is peroneus tertius muscle. Now the second set of retinacula, which lies on the lateral side of the ankle, is superior and inferior peroneal retinacula. This is lateral view of the ankle and foot. This is fibula. This is lateral surface of calcaneum. This whole bone which you can see here is the calcaneum bone, which is the tarsal bone in the foot. As I have already told you in my previous lecture, this bone forms the prominence of our heel at this point. Now starting with the superior peroneal retinaculum, this one. This is a thickened band of deep fascia situated just behind the lateral malleolus. At this point, this is lateral malleolus. Just behind to this lateral malleolus lies the superior peroneal retinaculum. This retinaculum, it holds the peroneal tendons in place against the back of lateral malleolus, like this. It is attached anteriorly to the posterior margin of lateral malleolus, and posteriorly it is attached to the lateral surface of calcaneum bone. Now coming to the inferior peroneal retinaculum, it is also a thickened band of deep fascia which lies antero-inferior to the lateral malleolus at this point, just antero-inferior to the lateral malleolus. Superiorly, it is attached to the anterior part of superior surface of calcaneum, where it becomes continuous with the stem of extensor retinaculum. This is inferior extensor retinaculum. At this point, these two retinacula, they become continuous. This is superior extensor retinaculum. Inferiorly, this retinaculum is attached to the lateral surface of the calcaneum. What is the significance of these peroneal retinacula? These peroneal retinacula, they hold the tendons of peroneus longus and brevis muscles in place. This is the peroneus longus muscle, this is peroneus brevis muscle. These are the muscles of the lateral compartment of leg. They pass deep to these peroneal retinacula. They are kept in place by these retinacula. Another important fact about these retinacula is, under the superior peroneal retinaculum, these two tendons, they lie in a single compartment and are surrounded by a common synovial sheath. As you can see here, common synovial sheath surrounds these two tendons. Under the inferior retinaculum, each tendon lies in a separate compartment. As you can see here, the tendon of peroneus brevis muscle, it lies in the superior compartment, while the tendon of peroneus longus muscle, it lies in the inferior compartment. At this point, these two tendons, they are enclosed in a separate synovial sheath. That's all about the peroneal retinacula. Now we'll talk about flexor retinaculum. Now we'll talk about the flexor retinaculum, which is a band of deep fascia which lies on the posteromedial side of the ankle and foot. This is flexor retinaculum, and this is an image showing medial aspect of the foot and ankle. This is lower end of tibia and medial malleolus. This is the talus. This is calcaneum bone. We need to know about these three bones because flexor retinaculum, it bridges the depression or concavity formed by these three bones. This is the navicular bone, this is medial cuneiform bone, and this is first metatarsal bone. We'll talk about these bones later on. For now, you just need to remember the names of these three bones: medial malleolus, talus, and calcaneum. Now, what are the attachments of flexor retinaculum? This flexor retinaculum is attached anteriorly to the posterior border and tip of medial malleolus at this point. Posterolaterally, this flexor retinaculum is attached to the medial tubercle of calcaneum at this point. An important fact about this flexor retinaculum is it sends down numerous septa which becomes attached to the underlying bones, which are medial malleolus, talus and calcaneum, and divides the underlying space into 4 compartments, as we talked about in the carpal tunnel in the wrist. Now we'll talk about the structures that pass deep to the flexor retinaculum. The first structure that passes through the first compartment is tendon of posterior tibialis muscle. The second compartment, it transmits the tendon of flexor digitorum longus muscle. Through the third compartment, posterior tibial vessels and posterior tibial nerve, they passes and enters the sole of the foot. Through the fourth compartment passes the tendon of flexor hallucis longus muscle. Each tendon, it occupies a separate compartment deep to the flexor retinaculum and is lined by a separate synovial sheath. The nerve and artery, they share a common compartment. Here is another image showing attachments of flexor retinaculum and the structures that pass deep to this retinaculum. As you can see here, each tendon that passes deep to the flexor retinaculum, it lies in a separate synovial sheath and separate compartment deep to the flexor retinaculum. The first structure, which starting from the medial to the lateral side, is the tibialis posterior muscle. Then comes the tendon of flexor digitorum longus muscle. Then comes the posterior tibial vessels and nerve. The last one is tendon of flexor hallucis longus muscle. That's all about the flexor retinaculum. Now we'll talk about a very important topic, which is tarsal tunnel. What is tarsal tunnel? It is a channel between medial malleolus, talus, calcaneum and the flexor retinaculum. This is medial malleolus, this is talus, this is calcaneum, and this green band is the flexor retinaculum. As I have already told you that these 3 bones, they form a depression or a concavity which is bridged by the flexor retinaculum, like this. So this space which is formed between these bones and this band of deep fascia is the tarsal tunnel. So tarsal tunnel is a fibro-osseous tunnel which lies posterior and inferior to the medial malleolus. This space which lies deep to the flexor retinaculum, this space is tarsal tunnel. Now what are the contents of tarsal tunnel? The tendon of tibialis posterior muscle, tendon of flexor digitorum longus muscle, posterior tibial vessels, posterior tibial nerve and tendon of flexor hallucis longus. All the structures which pass deep to the flexor retinaculum, as we have already discussed, they are the contents of tarsal tunnel. Now let's talk about the tarsal tunnel syndrome. Tarsal tunnel syndrome is a compressive neuropathy of tibial nerve which passes deep to this flexor retinaculum, as you can see in this image. When the pressure within the tarsal tunnel is increased, which might be due to many causes, it leads to compression of the tibial nerve within this tunnel. This condition is known as tarsal tunnel syndrome. Now let's talk about the causes of tarsal tunnel syndrome. Now let's discuss the causes or conditions that lead to the tarsal tunnel syndrome. Any condition that increases the size of the structures which pass through the tarsal tunnel, or the conditions which reduce the size of the tarsal tunnel, they lead to the increased pressure in the tarsal tunnel and compression of the nerve. The first condition is the severely flat feet. Normally our feet are arched. If a person has flattened feet, it can stretch the tibial nerve. The second cause is benign bony growths in the tarsal tunnel. As we know, we have three bones that contribute in the formation of tarsal tunnel, which are the medial malleolus, talus and calcaneum. Benign bony growth of any of these bones can lead to reduced space in the tarsal tunnel. Now the third one is varicose veins. Dilated veins can also increase the pressure or can also compress the tibial nerves in the tarsal tunnel. Fourth one is inflammation from the arthritis. Fifth one is lesions or masses like tumors or lipomas near the tibial nerve. Pressure due to these lesions may also lead to compression of the tibial nerve in the tarsal tunnel. Then comes injuries or trauma to the ankle. For example, ankle sprain or fracture of any of the bones near of the ankle joint. These injuries lead to inflammation and swelling around the ankle and can lead to compression of the nerve. Diabetes is also a risk factor which makes the nerves more vulnerable to compression. As we know, the flexor retinaculum has a limited ability to stretch, so any condition leading to increased pressure within the tunnel eventually cause compression of the tibial nerve. As the pressure increases on the nerve, the blood flow to the nerve is decreased. The nerve then responds with the altered sensations like tingling and numbness in the sole of the foot and around ankle. Now, talking about symptoms of the tarsal tunnel syndrome. When the tibial nerve is compressed in the tarsal tunnel, initially there is burning pain, electric shock like sensation, tingling and numbness, which is pins and needles type sensation around ankle and along the plantar surface of the foot. This red color is indicating area of pain and numbness in the tarsal tunnel syndrome. There may be swelling or inflammation around the ankle. In addition to this, pressure in the tarsal tunnel is also increased during ankle dorsiflexion, foot dorsiflexion at the ankle joint, and during eversion of the foot. If the condition is prolonged or underlying cause is not treated and pressure in the tarsal tunnel is not released, there may be permanent damage to the tibial nerve. This permanent damage leads to sensory loss on the sole of the foot, on the plantar surface of all the toes, including their nail beds, and skin over the heel. Tibial nerve gives off 3 cutaneous branches within the tarsal tunnel. We will talk about these branches in detail in subsequent lectures. Today, for now, I'll just give you a review about these nerves so that you can easily understand the sensory loss over the sole of the foot in tarsal tunnel syndrome. This is an image showing cutaneous innervation of the sole of the foot by branches of the tibial nerve. Tibial nerve divides into 2 terminal branches within the tarsal tunnel. The first branch is medial plantar nerve, which supply medial 3.5 toes and the adjoining sole, medial part of the sole. The second terminal branch is lateral plantar nerve, which supplies the lateral 1.5 toes and the adjoining lateral part of the sole. The third branch, which arises from the tibial nerve, is the medial calcaneal branch. Medial calcaneal branch has a variable origin. It may arise from the tibial nerve within the tarsal tunnel, or it may arise from the tibial nerve a level superior to the flexor retinaculum. When the tibial nerve within the tarsal tunnel is compressed, these three branches, these are affected, and in case of injury of tibial nerve within the tarsal tunnel, there is sensory loss in these areas of sole and toes supplied by these three cutaneous nerves. Coming to the treatment of tarsal tunnel syndrome, in mild cases, it can be treated simply by rest and elevation of the foot, which reduces the swelling and inflammation in the tarsal tunnel and around the ankle joint. We can also use painkillers and non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like acetaminophen and ibuprofen. Mild cases can be treated by exercises and physiotherapy. For more severe and chronic cases, surgery may be required to release the compression of the tibial nerve or to release the pressure in the tarsal tunnel. That's all about the tarsal tunnel and tarsal tunnel syndrome.